The cell was cold and made strange sounds. Corporal Taman stood near the wall that he could almost see through. He watched the stars move slowly past the window. Next to him sat Private Yuna. Her eyes were closed, but Taman knew she was awake. "How long have we been here?" Yuna asked. She did not open her eyes when she spoke. Taman did not answer right away. Time felt different in this place. The aliens had taken everything from them. Their watches, their weapons, even their boots. 23 humans were all that was left from the science team. They had been working on a planet far from Earth. Now they were prisoners of an alien empire. The empire was called the Hegemony. For 8 months, the Hegemony had been destroying human colonies in space. "Does it matter how long?" Taman finally said. Through the walls, he could see shadows moving. The aliens were called Valthek. They were very tall, almost 3 meters. Their bodies looked like they were made of crystal. Light would shine through them and make rainbow colors. Their army had destroyed 5 human bases without any trouble. Intelligence reports said the Valthek were just one species in the Hegemony. There were many others. Heavy footsteps came closer. Taman heard a clicking sound like crystal hitting metal. Commander Insu stood up from where he had been sitting. Even though the aliens had taken his uniform badges, the older man still looked like a leader. He stood straight and calm. The wall shimmered and disappeared. 3 Valthek guards walked in. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. The biggest one had marks on its crystal body that showed it was the leader. It spoke through a small device attached to its chest. The device translated the alien words into human language. "You will witness," the alien said. The translation made its voice sound flat and empty. "Your kind must understand that fighting us is pointless." "Witness what?" Commander Insu asked. He stepped forward. The Valthek's many eyes caught the dim light. "The end of human violence. Your home world will surrender. The negotiations are happening now." The cell went silent. Taman felt his stomach twist. Earth. They were talking about Earth. "You are lying," said Corporal Hana from the back of the cell. Her voice sounded steady, but Taman could hear fear underneath. The Valthek tilted its head. The movement looked strange. "We do not lie. We do not need to lie. Come, all of you. You will see." The guards pushed them into the hallway. The ship's corridors seemed to change shape as they walked. The Valthek ship was alive in some way. It was grown instead of built. The walls opened and closed as the crew moved through them. It was like the ship could think. They walked into a huge room. This had to be the command center of the ship. Many Valthek worked at strange stations. The controls did not look like human controls. They looked more like musical instruments. But what made every human stare was the giant hologram in the center of the room. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue, so far away and so fragile looking. And it showed the enemy fleet. Hundreds of alien ships, maybe thousands. They were arranged in a circle around Earth like a net, like a trap with no escape. "We heard your distress calls," the Valthek leader explained. "We know you sent warnings about us. Your governments gathered what defense ships they could." The alien pointed at the display with one crystal arm. "Not enough. Not nearly enough." Taman walked closer. He could not help himself. The image was so detailed. He could see defense platforms floating in space. He could see Earth's combined fleet moving into position, but they looked so small. The human ships looked like toys compared to the Hegemony Armada. "They have not surrendered," Insu said quietly. "They will. They must. We have given them 1 day to think about our terms." The Valthek's voice seemed pleased. "You will watch. You will see your species choose life over pride." The guards made the humans stand at the edge of the room. They were not quite prisoners now. Not quite guests either. More like animals in a zoo, things to be studied and observed. Taman found himself standing next to Ensign Subin. She had been part of the team that studied alien languages. "This is psychological warfare," Subin whispered. "They want to break our spirits before they question us. Then we do not break." Taman whispered back. But as he watched the display and saw how badly outnumbered the humans were, he wondered if breaking was the only possible outcome. The Valthek were not just stronger. They were part of something much bigger, something that had been growing and spreading through space for a very long time. Humans had only been traveling to other stars for 50 years, and already they had attracted the attention of predators. Hours passed. The Valthek brought no food and no water. This was on purpose, Taman knew. Keep them uncomfortable. Keep them focused on how weak they were. Make them watch as everything they knew prepared to give up. But Earth was not giving up. The human fleet was moving, changing positions, doing things that Taimin did not understand. Commander Insu stepped closer to the display. His eyes narrowed as he watched. "They are not falling back," he said loudly enough for the nearest Valtech to hear. The alien commander walked over. Its crystal body caught the light from the hologram and made dancing rainbow patterns on the floor. "They are being foolish. This only delays what must happen. It will only make more of them die." "Maybe," Insu said. "Or maybe you do not understand humans as well as you think." The Valtech made a sound like wind blowing through glass. Maybe it was laughing. Maybe it was mocking them. "We understand you well enough. We have studied 17 of your colonies. We have taken apart your technology. We have learned your tactics and your psychology. You are violent, yes. You find creative solutions. But you have limits. Your species reached for the stars too soon. Now you will pay the price for that ambition." Taimin wanted to argue. He wanted to defend humanity. But what could he say? The proof was right there in the hologram. They were outnumbered and outgunned. They were out of time. But as he watched the human fleet keep moving in strange patterns, he felt something grow inside his chest. Not hope exactly. Something harder. Something more stubborn. Earth was not surrendering, not yet. The deadline passed. Earth's answer did not come in words. It came in action. The human fleet that the Valtech had called weak suddenly broke apart. What had looked like a desperate defense position changed into something completely different. "They are attacking," Subin said, her voice filled with disbelief. The Valtech commander's crystal body seemed to get darker. Colors rippled through its shell. "Madness, they are killing themselves." But Taimin was watching Commander Insu's face. The older man did not look scared or sad. His eyes were calculating, reading something in the human fleet's movements, something the Valtech were not seeing. The first group of human ships flew straight into the hegemony blockade. As expected, the aliens opened fire. Energy weapons lit up the hologram like fireworks. Several human ships took terrible damage. Their symbols on the display winked out and disappeared. Taimin felt each loss like someone had punched him in the chest. "Your people die for nothing," the Valtech commander said. "This changes nothing." Then the human ships exploded, not from enemy fire, on purpose. Planned explosions that sent waves of electromagnetic energy through the hegemony formation. The hologram flickered and distorted. Several enemy ships went dark. Their systems were overwhelmed EMP mines, Insu said quietly. They turned their own ships into weapons. The Valtech around the command center had stopped working. All of them were staring at the display. Taimin could read their body language now, the subtle shifts in their crystal surfaces. They were surprised. More human ships pressed forward. They used the gaps in the enemy formation. These ships were smaller and faster. They were not trying to win a normal space battle. They were going after specific targets, ships that looked like command vessels. "They have been studying you too," Hana said. Her voice carried across the chamber. "All those colonies you destroyed gave us information. Every battle taught us something. You thought you were teaching us that we cannot win. You were teaching us how you fight." The Valtech commander turned toward her. Its massive body somehow looked threatening despite being made of beautiful crystal. "You cannot win, even if you damage our fleet here. The hegemony controls 1,000 star systems. You are one world. One species alone. We have been alone before," Insu said. "We are used to it." The battle kept going. The human fleet was losing many ships, but they were hurting the enemy too. More importantly, they were fighting with an intensity that seemed to disturb their captors. Taimin watched Valtech operators glancing at each other. Their movements looked less certain now. A new signal appeared on the hologram. Multiple ships jumping into the system from far away. Reinforcements, Taimin thought. More hegemony ships coming to crush what was left of Earth's defense. But the Valtech commander's colors shifted to something Taimin had never seen before. Dark purples and blacks swirled through its crystal body. The other Valtech around the command center froze at their stations. "What is that?" Subin asked. The new ships became clear images. Ships, yes, but not hegemony vessels. They were human, hundreds of them. A fleet that was bigger than the one defending Earth. Taimin recognized the shapes. Colony defense forces, merchant ships that had been given weapons, corporate security ships, even civilian craft covered with improvised guns. "The colonies," Yuna breathed. "They came." Commander Insu smiled. It was a fierce expression that reminded Taman why the man had earned his rank. You attacked our outposts, destroyed our settlements, thought you were picking off isolated targets. He turned to face the Valthek commander. You were uniting us. The colonial fleet did not hesitate. They drove straight into the hegemony blockade from a completely different direction. They coordinated with the Earth forces in a way that showed careful planning. This was not a desperate gamble. This was a strategy that had been worked out in advance. How, the Valthek commander said. The translator made the word sound almost human in its confusion. We monitored all your communications. We saw no coordination between your worlds. You monitored our official channels, Insu said. Military frequencies, government transmissions. You thought those were the only ways we could talk to each other. He pointed at the display. But humans are social creatures. We have civilian networks, commercial channels, independent relay stations. We have people who talk to each other just because they want to. You were looking for organized military response. You missed the angry neighbors showing up with whatever weapons they could find. The battle changed. The hegemony fleet was still larger, still more advanced in technology, but now they were fighting on multiple fronts against an enemy that refused to follow normal patterns. Human ships used ramming attacks, suicide plays, tactics that made no sense if you cared about survival, but created chaos in the alien formations. Taman watched a civilian transport ship. Its hull was painted with a merchant company logo. It deliberately crashed into a hegemony cruiser 3 times its size. The impact destroyed both ships, but it also created an opening. 24 human fighters poured fire into the cruiser's exposed interior. They are not fighting to win, Hana said. Understanding filled her voice. They are fighting to hurt you, to make this so expensive that you will think twice about attacking another human world. The Valthek commander said nothing. Around the command center, alarm signals started to sound. The organic walls of the ship pulsed with urgency. Other alien species appeared on smaller displays. Their own ships were being engaged by human forces. The blockade was falling apart. One of the Valthek operators called out in its own language. The translation unit struggled to keep up. Something about casualties, about unexpected losses, about needing instructions from the hegemony high command. We are the hegemony, the commander said. Its voice was sharp. We do not need instructions. We adapt. But there was something in the alien's tone that Taman had not heard before. Not quite fear. Something closer to respect. The human fleet, both Earth forces and colonial ships, kept pressing their advantage. They were not trying to destroy the entire hegemony armada. They were pushing it back, creating enough pressure that the aliens had to choose between retreat and terrible losses. Order withdrawal, the Valthek commander finally said. The command center went silent except for the hum of systems. Every Valthek operator turned to stare at their leader. Commander, one of them said, withdraw. Reform at Rally Point Sigma. We will look at this situation again with full Hegemony Council input. The alien turned back to face the human prisoners. In the hologram's light, its crystal body looked almost fragile. You have won this engagement, not the war. Insu met the alien's gaze steadily. We are not trying to win a war. We are trying to survive one. There is a difference. As the Valthek ship began to pull back from Earth's system, joining the broader hegemony retreat, Taman felt something shift in the atmosphere of the command center. The Valthek guards around them were still alert, still armed, but they were watching the human prisoners differently now, not as defeated specimens, as something more dangerous than they had thought possible. The Valthek ship traveled through space for many days. Taman had no way to know exactly how long. The prisoners were sent back to their cells, but something had changed. Guards still watched them closely, but the feeling was different now. The aliens were no longer treating them like defeated enemies. They were treating them like threats. Subin was the first to notice other changes. Listen, she said one day. She pressed her ear against the cell wall. The ship sounds different, she was right. The living hum that filled the ship had developed an irregular beat, like a heart that sometimes skipped. Through the walls they could see Valthek crew members moving faster. They looked worried. When the guards came for them again, it was different than before. The ranking officer was not there. A younger Valthek with clearer crystal colors simply waved for them to follow. They were led to a different room this time. Not the command center. This was an observation deck. A long chamber with one entire wall made of transparent material. And what they saw beyond that wall made several prisoners gasp out loud. Ships. Thousands of them. But not in neat organized lines. This was a fleet in chaos. The Hegemony Armada, Commander Insu said softly. Or what is left of it. Taman pressed closer to the transparent wall. He could see Valtech vessels, yes. But also ships from at least a dozen other alien species. Massive warships with strange shapes he did not recognize. Sleek cruisers that seemed to bend light around them. Bizarre things that looked more like living creatures than spacecraft. All of them showing damage, all of them limping away from human space. One battle did this, Yuna asked. Not just Earth, Commander Insu replied. His eyes scanned the fleet with professional assessment. Look at the damage patterns. Some of those ships are burned from energy weapons. Others show impact damage. The colonies fought back. All of them. The young Valtech guard shifted its weight. The translator on its chest crackled to life. You should not have been able to resist. Our analysis said you had minimal defense capability, fragmented political structure, limited coordination between population centers. Your analysis was correct, Insu said. Before you attacked, the alien's crystal surface rippled with confusion. Explain. Hana stepped forward. You unified us. Every colony you destroyed, every outpost you raided, you gave us a common enemy. We were not fighting for governments or corporations anymore. We were fighting for humanity. An emotional response, the Valtech said dismissively. Sentiment does not change tactical reality. No, Insu agreed, but it changes how hard people fight. It changes what they are willing to sacrifice. He pointed at the damaged fleet beyond the window. You calculated that we would surrender when casualties reached a certain number. You did not account for the fact that humans get more dangerous when we are angry. A senior Valtech entered the observation deck. Its crystal body was marked with cracks that had not been there before. This was the commander from earlier, Taman realized. It looked smaller somehow, despite its size. The Hegemony Council has completed its assessment, the commander announced. Its translator made the words very precise. As if the alien wanted no confusion. Your species will be reclassified. Reclassified as what? Insu asked. Previously, humans were designated as Category 9, emerging species, technologically primitive, suitable for resource extraction and subjugation. The Valtech paused. Its many eyes reflected the starlight beyond the window. The new designation is Category 3, established species, militarily significant, unsuitable for conventional conquest. Silence filled the observation deck. Taman felt the weight of those words. It was not peace. It was not friendship. But it was acknowledgement. It was respect. You are saying you are leaving us alone, Subin asked, for now. The Valtech commander moved to the transparent wall. It stood beside Insu. The Hegemony has protocols for Category 3 species. Trade agreements rather than subjugation. Diplomatic channels rather than occupation. These protocols exist because our coalition has encountered species like yours before. Species that make conquest too expensive to pursue. You attacked us because you thought we were weak, Hana said. And you are stopping because we proved we are not. More complex than that. The alien's crystal body caught light from a passing ship. It broke the light into dancing colors across the deck. We attacked because our projections indicated a 97% probability of successful subjugation within one rotation. Your resistance should have collapsed at Earth. Instead, your defense fleets coordinated across multiple systems without centralized command structure. Your civilian population contributed military assets. Your colonists abandoned their settlements to join the battle. That surprises you, Taman asked. It contradicts established patterns. Most species prioritize survival of local populations over abstract concepts of species unity. Your colonies should have negotiated separate peace agreements. Your Earth should have surrendered to preserve its population. Instead, you fought as if defeat of any human settlement was defeat of all humans. Insu nodded slowly. Because it is. We are a young species in a very old galaxy. We know we cannot survive alone. Every human world lost makes all of humanity weaker. So we protect each other, even at great cost, the Valtech commander said. Your fleet losses exceeded 40%. Civilian casualties on your colonies number in millions. Resources expended approach unsustainable levels. Yet you continue fighting. Yes, Insu said simply. The alien made that wind through crystal sound again. But this time Taman understood it differently. Not contempt. respect mixed with something like frustration. The Hegemony Council has issued new directives regarding human-controlled space. We will withdraw beyond your established border zones. Trade negotiators will be sent to discuss resource access agreements. Your prisoners will be returned. Just like that, Yuna said. You try to conquer us, fail, and now we are trading partners. The hegemony is not governed by ego, the Valthek commander replied. We are a coalition of 37 species across 1,400 systems. We exist because we understand strategic calculation. Humans are not worth the cost of conquering. Therefore, we will find more efficient means of interaction. Taemin wanted to feel relief. But something about the alien's tone suggested this conversation was not over. He glanced at Commander Insu. He saw the same wariness in the older man's expression. But, Insu said, making it not a question but a certainty that there was more. The Valthek commander's colors shifted. Patterns flowed through its crystal structure that the translator could not interpret. But you should understand what your victory means. The hegemony has existed for 17,000 of your years. In that time, we have encountered thousands of emerging species. Most accept subjugation. Some resist. A very few fight hard enough to be reclassified to Category 3. How many? Subin asked. In 17,000 years, 12 species achieved Category 3 status through military resistance. The alien turned from the window to face them directly. Of those 12, 11 eventually joined the hegemony voluntarily. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. Hana was the one who spoke them aloud. You are saying this is a test. You attack species to see which ones are worth recruiting. I am saying that the galaxy is a dangerous place, the Valthek commander replied. The hegemony maintains order across a significant portion of known space. Outside our borders exist threats that make our attempted conquest of your species seem gentle by comparison. Species that do not negotiate, do not calculate cost, do not respect category classifications. You are trying to scare us into joining you, Insu said flatly. I am stating facts. Your species has proven it can resist the hegemony. That is impressive. But the hegemony was not attempting to exterminate you. We were attempting to subjugate you. There is a significant difference. The alien moved toward the exit, then paused. You should think carefully about what happens when you encounter something that does want you extinct. The Valthek left them alone on the observation deck. Guards moved back to give them privacy. Taemin walked back to the transparent wall. He watched the damaged fleet drift through space. They had won. Humanity had fought back against an overwhelming enemy and survived, but the Valthek's words echoed in his mind. They had beaten one threat. How many others were out there in the dark between stars? Commander, he said quietly, do you think they are right? About worse things being out there? Insu was silent for a long moment. His eyes looked distant. I think they just told us the galaxy is even more dangerous than we feared. And I think they are shocked that knowing that does not make us want to surrender. Does it? Yuna asked. Change anything, I mean. Knowing we might face something even worse. No, Insu said firmly. Because no matter what is out there, we have already learned the most important lesson. What is that? Subin asked. The commander smiled. There was something fierce in that expression. That humans do not fold when things get scary. We get ready for the next fight. The journey back to human space took 12 days by Taemin's best guess. The Valthek ship moved at a steady pace. Not fast, not slow. Just purposeful. During this time, the prisoners were given better rooms. Not freedom exactly, but they could move around in certain sections of the ship. It gave them chances to watch and learn. Taemin spent hours observing the hegemony crew members. The Valthek were not alone on this ship. He saw at least 4 other alien species, each one completely different from the others. There were the Kelthir, small 2-legged beings with metallic skin that changed colors based on their emotions. The Varn, massive 4-legged creatures whose bodies seemed to flicker in and out of reality. The Isith, insect-like beings who talked to each other using scent markers, and others he could not identify. Aliens so strange that Taemin struggled to figure out which end was the head, yet they all worked together smoothly. Thousands of years of working together, he realized. This was not a temporary alliance. This was a civilization, makes you think, Yuna said. She found him in one of the observation corridors they were allowed to use, about how young we really are. I have been thinking about that, Taemin admitted. The Valthek commander said they have existed for 17,000 years. Our entire recorded history is maybe 10,000. We have had space travel for barely a century, and yet we fought them to a standstill. Did we? Taman turned to face her. Or did they just decide we were not worth the effort? Yuna leaned against the corridor wall. Her eyes tracked a group of Kelthir as they passed. Their metallic skin showed orange and yellow patterns. Does the difference matter? They came to conquer us. They left. We are still here. The commander's warning matters, Taman said. About worse things out there. About how the hegemony maintains order. What if they are right? What if they are actually the good guys and we just do not know it yet? Then we figure it out when we need to, Yuna replied. Right now, all I know is that humans do not do well with masters. Better to face whatever is coming as free people than as somebody's subjects. A Valthek approached them. Its crystal body showed patterns that Taman had learned meant official business. Your commander is requested in the diplomatic chamber. You may come as witnesses. They found Insu already being escorted by a different guard. Hana and Subin joined them along the way. The diplomatic chamber was smaller than the command center. More personal. A circular room with a table grown from the same living material as the ship. Seats arranged for different body types. The Valthek commander was already there, along with 3 other aliens. A Kelthir whose metallic skin rippled with complex patterns. A Varn whose massive body barely fit in the space, and something that looked like it lived in water, floating in a sphere of liquid. Commander Insu, the Valthek said. I am Velkara, currently serving as liaison between the hegemony and newly classified Category 3 species. These are my colleagues. Curtin of the Kelthir, the small metallic alien bowed its head. Thurl of the Varn, the massive creature's 6 eyes focused on the humans, and Misika of the Quilum, the water being rippled inside its sphere. A delegation, Insu said. I am honored, though I should make clear that I do not have authority to negotiate for humanity. I am just a military officer. We understand, Curtin said. Its voice was surprisingly musical. This is not negotiation. This is education. The Hegemony Council has authorized us to provide you with information that Category 3 species normally receive. Information about what? Insu asked. Thurl's deep voice filled the chamber. About why the hegemony exists. About what we protect against. About the choice your species will eventually face. Velkara activated a holographic display at the center of the table. It showed a star map. Vast beyond understanding. Thousands of systems connected by lines of travel and trade. The hegemony's territory, Taman realized. This is known space, Velkara said. 1,400 systems under hegemony governance. 37 member species. Population approximately 4 trillion sentient beings across various stages of development. The display shifted, zooming out. The hegemony's territory, so huge moments ago, became a small cluster in a much larger map, and beyond its borders Taman saw something that made his stomach tighten. Empty zones, vast regions of space marked in red. These are exclusion zones, Misika explained, its voice somehow clear despite being in a sealed sphere. Regions where hegemony ships do not travel. Where contact is forbidden. Why? Subin asked. The 3 aliens exchanged what might have been glances. Velkara continued. Because they are controlled by species that pose existential threats. The hegemony is powerful, but we are not invincible. There are things in this galaxy older than us. Things that do not negotiate. How many? Insu asked quietly. 3 major threats, Curtin replied. The Devourers who consume all living matter they encounter and convert it to expand their fleets. The Pattern, a collective intelligence that absorbs other species into its group consciousness. And the Silence, about which we know very little except that entire civilizations have vanished after encountering them. The holographic display updated, showing recordings. Taman watched in growing horror as alien ships far more advanced than anything humans had built were systematically destroyed by things that seemed to break the laws of physics, ships consumed by swarms of biological machines, planets going dark as some invisible force swept across them. The hegemony exists, Thurl said, because together we are strong enough to maintain borders against these threats. Alone, even the most powerful member species would eventually fall. You are telling us this why? Insu asked. To scare us into joining, to inform you, Velkara replied. Category 3 species are granted independence because you have proven capable of defending yourselves. But you should understand the context of your situation. Human space currently exists in a relatively safe region. The threats we monitor are distant from your borders, but space is vast and those threats are expanding. Eventually, you will encounter them. Hana stepped forward. When you say eventually, what time frame are we talking about? Unknown, Misika admitted. The Devourers advance slowly but steadily. Current projections suggest they will reach hegemony borders within 200 of your years. The pattern is more unpredictable in its expansion. The silence cannot be predicted. 200 years, Insu said. That is a long time. For an individual, yes, Curtin agreed. For a species, it is barely enough time to prepare. The hegemony has spent thousands of years building the infrastructure, the alliances, the technologies needed to resist these threats. You have decades, so you are offering us a choice, Insu said. Join the hegemony voluntarily. Gain access to your resources and protection, or remain independent and face these threats alone. There is a third option, Velkara said. You could attempt to expand into space that is currently empty. Avoid both hegemony territory and the exclusion zones. Create your own region. But you do not recommend that, Taman said, reading between the words. Space is not empty, Thurl rumbled. There are reasons systems remain unclaimed. Environmental dangers, hostile phenomena, or because previous inhabitants were eliminated by threats that still remain. The holographic display zoomed back in, focusing on human space. Their tiny cluster of colonies, so small in the galactic context. Taman felt the weight of it, the sheer scale of what they faced. How do we know this is not manipulation, Subin asked. How do we know these threats are real and not just stories you tell to frighten Category 3 species into joining you? Velkara's crystal body shifted colors. Patterns flowed through it that suggested approval. A wise question. We expected it. The alien touched the holographic display and suddenly the chamber was filled with data. Recordings, sensor logs, scientific analysis. Centuries of documentation about encounters with the threats, battle reports, casualty numbers, entire species marked as extinct. This information is now available to human scientists, Curtin said. We will establish a data relay at the border of your space. Everything we know about the threats, about hegemony defensive strategies, about technologies that have proven effective or not. You may study it as you wish, Insu asked. Why give us this? Because humans are Category 3, Velkara said. Because you have earned the right to make an informed choice. Some Category 3 species join us immediately after learning about the threats. Others choose independence and isolation. A very few attempt to forge their own path. And which choice do you think we will make? Hana asked. The four aliens were silent for a moment. Then Curtin spoke, its metallic skin showing colors that suggested something like amusement. Based on what we have observed of human behavior, you will choose the most difficult path possible. You will refuse to join us out of pride. You will refuse to isolate yourselves out of curiosity. And you will attempt to find a fourth option that no one has considered before. Insu smiled slightly. You might be right, we usually are, Thurl said. His massive form shifted. Which is why we are offering this information freely. When you encounter the threats, and you will, we want you to survive. Category 3 species are rare, valuable. The galaxy needs diversity of thought and approach. Losing humanity would be a waste. The meeting ended shortly after. The humans were escorted back to their quarters. But Taman's mind was spinning with everything they had learned. The galaxy was far more dangerous than any human had imagined, and humanity was being given a choice that would determine their future for generations to come. That night, as much as night meant anything on an alien ship, the human prisoners gathered together. They talked quietly about what they had seen and heard. We cannot trust them completely, Hana said. This could still be manipulation. Maybe, Insu agreed, but the data they are offering is real. We can verify it, study it, learn from it. And then what, Yuna asked. Do we join them? Do we hide? Do we keep expanding like nothing has changed? We do what humans always do, Insu said. We adapt, we learn, we survive. And we do it our way, not theirs. Taman looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past. Somewhere out there were threats beyond imagination, but also opportunities, challenges, a future that was uncertain but still theirs to shape. For better or worse, humanity was now a player on the galactic stage, and the game had just begun. 3 days later, the Valtech ship finally reached the border of human space. Taman could see human patrol vessels on the holographic displays. Small, fast ships that looked almost primitive compared to the massive hegemony warship. But they were there, watching, Ready. The humans are hailing us, a Valthek operator announced. They demand we release the prisoners immediately or face military action. Velkara made that wind through crystal sound. Tell them we are complying with hegemony protocols for Category 3 species. The prisoners will be transferred within the hour. The tension in the command center was obvious. Even though the hegemony had agreed to withdraw, no one seemed completely comfortable with the situation. The Valthek crew moved carefully, precisely as if one wrong move might restart the conflict. Commander Insu and the other prisoners were brought to a transfer bay. It was a large room with a docking port on one side. Through the transparent section of the port, Taemin could see a human shuttle approaching. The sight of it, with Earth's flag painted on its hull, made his throat tight with emotion. "Before you go," Velkara said, approaching the group. The alien's crystal body showed colors that Taemin had learned meant seriousness. "I have been authorized to give you a final piece of information, something the Hegemony Council debated sharing." "What is it?" Insu asked. "The reason we truly stopped our conquest of your species." Velkara paused. "Yes, your military resistance was effective. Yes, the cost was higher than projected. But the hegemony has absorbed such costs before when the strategic value was high enough." "Then why did you really stop?" Subin asked. "Because of what we saw in your psychology," Velkara replied. "The way your colonies responded. The way civilians became soldiers. The way you protected each other without central authority demanding it." The alien's colors shifted in a way that suggested discomfort. "The hegemony has encountered this pattern before. Species that bond intensely during conflict. Species that become more unified and more dangerous the harder they are pushed." "You are saying we remind you of someone," Hana said. "The Kelthir," Velkara answered. "The small metallic beings you have seen on this ship. They were Category 9 when we first encountered them. We attempted subjugation. They resisted with the same intensity you showed. We escalated. They escalated. The conflict lasted 40 years and cost both sides terribly." "What happened?" Yuna asked. "Eventually, we reclassified them to Category 3 and offered peace," Velkara said. "They accepted. But it took 2 generations for the wounds to heal, for trust to develop, for them to choose to join the hegemony voluntarily." The alien moved closer to the viewport, watching the human shuttle dock. "We learned from that experience. When we see the same patterns in a species, we adjust our approach earlier. We chose to save both our species 40 years of bloodshed. So you are saying you gave up because you saw a long war ahead?" Insu said. "We chose diplomacy because we recognized worthy opponents," Velkara corrected. "There is a difference. The hegemony is not perfect. We make mistakes. But we learn from them. Humanity has the potential to be a valuable addition to our coalition. Whether that happens in your lifetime or in 10 generations, we are patient." The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk. The airlock began its cycling process. Taemin watched the indicators turn from red to yellow to green. Freedom was just a few meters away. "One more thing," Velkara said. "When you return to your people, they will ask you questions. What you saw, what you learned, what you think humanity should do, and what should we tell them?" Insu asked. "The truth," Velkara replied. "That the galaxy is vast and dangerous. That humanity is no longer alone, for better or worse. That choices lie ahead with no easy answers." The alien paused. "And tell them that the hegemony will be watching, not as enemies but as observers, curious to see what path humanity chooses." The airlock opened. Human soldiers stood on the other side, weapons ready, faces hard with determination. When they saw the prisoners alive and apparently unharmed, relief washed over their features. "Commander Insu," the lead soldier said, saluting sharply. "Captain Donghyun of the Earth Defense Force. We are here to bring you home." Insu returned the salute. "Good to see you, Captain. Let us not waste any more time in this place." The prisoners filed through the airlock one by one. Taemin was near the end of the line. As he stepped through, he looked back at Velkara. The Valtek stood watching them leave, its crystal body reflecting the lights of both ships. "Will we see you again?" Taemin asked. "Almost certainly," Velkara replied. "The universe has a way of bringing species together, whether they wish it or not. Try to make sure that when we meet again, it is under better circumstances." Taemin nodded and stepped through the airlock. The human shuttle felt cramped after weeks on the massive hegemony ship, but it felt like home. The air smelled right. The sounds were familiar. Even the uncomfortable seats felt wonderful. As the shuttle detached and began its journey back to the fleet, Taimin looked out the viewport. The Valthek ship was already turning away, beginning its long journey back to hegemony space. Other alien vessels were doing the same. The entire armada that had threatened Earth was withdrawing. "We won," Yuna said quietly, sitting beside him. She was watching the same sight. "We actually won, did we?" Taimin replied. "Or did we just survive the first test?" "Maybe they are the same thing," Yuna said. "Maybe for humans, surviving is winning." The shuttle's pilot came over the intercom. "All passengers, we will be docking with the fleet flagship in 20 minutes. Medical teams are standing by. Command wants full debriefs within 6 hours. Welcome home." Home. The word felt strange after everything they had experienced. Taimin realized that home was not going to feel the same as it had before. None of them would be the same. They had seen too much, learned too much. The galaxy had revealed itself to be far larger and more complex than humanity had imagined. The flagship appeared ahead. A massive vessel, one of Earth's largest warships. But even it looked small compared to what they had just left. Taimin could see the scars on its hull. Burn marks from energy weapons. Impact craters from kinetic strikes. This ship had been in the battle, had fought and survived. As they docked, Taimin saw crowds waiting. Officers, crew members, even some civilians. Everyone wanted to see the returned prisoners. Everyone wanted to hear their stories. Commander Insu stood as the shuttle came to rest. He looked at each of the prisoners in turn. "Listen to me," he said. His voice was calm but commanding. "What we experienced was extraordinary. What we learned will shape humanity's future. But remember this. We are witnesses, not decision makers. We will tell the truth about what we saw, about the hegemony, about the threats beyond, about the choices ahead. But we will not tell our people what to do. That choice belongs to all of humanity, not just to us." The shuttle door opened. The noise of the crowd rushed in. Questions shouted from every direction. Camera drones hovering to record everything. Insu stepped out first, his bearings straight and proud. The others followed. Taimin was one of the last to emerge. The lights were bright after the dim corridors of the alien ship. The faces around him were filled with hope and curiosity and fear. They wanted answers. They wanted reassurance. They wanted to know what came next. But Taimin did not have those answers. None of them did. All they had was their experience, their observations, their testimony about what they had witnessed. As medical personnel led them away for examination, Taimin heard fragments of conversation from the crowd. Talk about the battle, about the colonies that had responded, about the cost in lives and ships, about what it meant that the hegemony had withdrawn, and underneath it all, one question kept repeating. What do we do now? That question would define humanity's next chapter. Taimin knew that debates were already starting. Some would want to join the hegemony for protection. Others would demand total isolation. Still others would push for aggressive expansion, claiming new territory before someone else did. Each path had risks. Each path had potential rewards. And humanity would have to choose wisely. Because out there in the dark between stars, ancient threats were stirring. The Devourers consumed world after world. The pattern spread its influence across entire sectors. The silence moved through space, leaving only emptiness behind. Humanity had won its first battle. But the war for survival had just begun. As Taimin lay in the medical bay, sensors monitoring his vital signs, he stared at the ceiling and thought about everything they had learned. About the hegemony's 17,000-year history. About the 12 species that had earned Category 3 status. About the 11 that eventually joined voluntarily. Would humanity be the 12th? Or would they find that fourth path that no one expected? The uniquely human solution that defied all predictions. Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer a naive species reaching blindly into space. They were players now. Participants in a galactic drama that had been unfolding for millennia. And whatever came next, they would face it as they always had. Together. Stubborn, unbroken, human. 6 months had passed since the hegemony withdrew from human space. 6 months of debates, arguments, and decisions that would shape humanity's future. Taimin stood in the observation deck of the new diplomatic station, watching ships come and go. Human ships mostly, but also a few alien vessels, trade ships from neutral species, observers. The galaxy was paying attention now. Commander Insu joined him at the viewport. The older man looked tired. The past months had been hard on all of them. Endless meetings with government officials, testimony before councils and committees, interviews with scientists trying to understand everything they had learned. "How are you holding up?" Insu asked. "Tired," Taimin admitted. "Everyone wants to know what we think, what we saw, what humanity should do. But I am just a soldier. I do not have all the answers. None of us do," Insu said. "But we have experience. That counts for something." Below them, a hegemony shuttle was docking. It had been happening more frequently now. Trade negotiations mostly. Cultural exchanges. Careful, cautious steps towards something that might one day become cooperation, but trust was slow to build. "Have you heard the latest numbers?" Insu asked. "From the colonies," Taimin nodded. 23 new settlements established in the past 6 months. 15 existing colonies expanded. Humanity was not retreating into isolation. They were pushing outward with renewed determination. "Some people say we are being reckless," Taimin said. "That we should consolidate, prepare defenses, build up our strength before expanding further." Insu smiled slightly. "And others say we should claim as much territory as possible while we can. That expansion is the only way to ensure survival." Both sides have valid points. "What do you think we should do?" Taimin asked. "I think humanity will do what humanity always does," Insu replied. "We will argue about it endlessly and then do a bit of everything. Expand some, consolidate some, build alliances where we can, prepare for threats, somehow muddle through." Taimin could not help but laugh. "That does sound like us." The door opened and Yuna entered. She wore a civilian outfit now. She had left the military 2 months ago to join the new Xenocultural Studies program, studying alien societies, trying to understand the vast diversity of life in the galaxy. "You two need to come to the conference room," she said. "They are about to reveal the data from the hegemony relay." The relay. Velcara had been true to their word. 3 months ago, a hegemony automated station had appeared at the border of human space. It broadcasted continuously. Scientific data, historical records, everything the hegemony knew about the 3 major threats. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, freely given. Human scientists had been analyzing it ever since, and now they were ready to present their findings. The conference room was packed. Military officers, government officials, scientists from a dozen different disciplines. Subin was there, now working as a translator and cultural liaison. Hana had become an advisor to the Defense Council. The prisoners who had witnessed everything together were now scattered across different roles, each contributing what they could. Dr. Park Ji-hoon stood at the front of the room. He was the lead researcher on the threat analysis project. His face was grave as he activated the holographic display. "We have completed our preliminary analysis of the hegemony data," he said. "And I will not sugarcoat this. The threats are real. They are exactly as dangerous as the hegemony claimed, perhaps more so." The display showed images of the Devourers, massive biological machines that consumed everything in their path. Entire planets stripped of life in a matter of weeks. The swarms grew exponentially. Each world they consumed providing resources to build more units. "The Devourers are the most straightforward threat," Dr. Park continued. "They expand slowly but relentlessly. Current projections show they will not reach our region of space for at least 150 years. That gives us time to prepare." The display shifted to show the pattern. It looked like a web spreading across space, connecting worlds, linking minds. "The pattern is more insidious," Dr. Park said. "It does not destroy. It assimilates. Species that encounter it often join voluntarily, seduced by the promise of shared consciousness. Perfect communication. The end of loneliness. But once you join, you cannot leave. Individual identity dissolves into the collective." "How close is the pattern to us?" an officer asked. "Unknown," Dr. Park admitted. "The pattern does not expand in predictable ways. It jumps. Sometimes it will ignore entire sectors, then suddenly appear hundreds of light years away. The hegemony has lost contact with 17 member species to the pattern. Simply lost. No warning. No distress calls. One day they were there, the next they were part of something else." The room was silent. Taimin could feel the weight of that information settling over everyone. "And the silence?" someone asked quietly. Dr. Park's expression became even grimmer. The silence is the one we understand least. The hegemony records show 43 documented encounters over 8,000 years. In every case, entire civilizations vanished. No survivors. No wreckage. Just empty space where thriving worlds once existed. What could cause that? Insu asked. We do not know, Dr. Park admitted. The hegemony does not know. The prevailing theory is that the silence is not a species at all. It might be a natural phenomenon. A cosmic event, or something so alien that we cannot even properly categorize it. A government official stood up. Dr. Park, what is your recommendation? Should we join the hegemony for protection against these threats? Dr. Park was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. That is not my decision to make. I am a scientist. I can tell you about the threats. I can tell you that the hegemony's defensive strategies have been moderately successful. Their coalition has survived for 17,000 years in a galaxy full of dangers. But whether humanity should join them, that is a political and philosophical question, not a scientific one. But if you had to choose, the official pressed. What would you do? I would choose independence, Dr. Park said firmly. Not out of pride or stubbornness, but because the data shows something interesting. The species that survive longest are not necessarily the strongest or most advanced. They are the most adaptable, the most creative. Species that can find unconventional solutions to impossible problems. The hegemony is powerful, but they are also predictable. They have protocols for everything. Strategies refined over millennia. But what happens when they face a threat that does not fit their protocols? You think humanity's unpredictability is an advantage? Subin said. I think it might be our greatest strength. Dr. Park replied. We have been in space for barely a century, and we already forced the hegemony to change their entire approach to us. We do not fight like they expect. We do not organize like they expect. We do not think like they expect. That unpredictability might be exactly what the galaxy needs. The meeting continued for hours. Debates about strategy, about resource allocation, about diplomatic relations. But Taman could see a consensus forming. Humanity would not join the hegemony, not yet. Maybe not ever. Instead, they would forge their own path, build their own alliances, develop their own strategies. It was risky. It was dangerous. But it was human. That evening, Taman returned to the observation deck. The stars looked the same as they always had, beautiful and distant. But now he knew what was out there. The dangers, the opportunities, the vast complexity of a galaxy full of life. Yuna found him there again. She handed him a drink. Some kind of colony-made beverage that tasted like home. Do you ever regret it, she asked, being the ones who saw everything? Who have to carry this knowledge every day, Taman said honestly. Then he smiled. And not at all. We were witnesses to something extraordinary. The moment humanity stopped being children reaching for the stars and became adults living among them. Do you think we will survive? Yuna asked. Against all those threats? Taman thought about everything they had learned. About the hegemony's 17,000-year history. About the devourers and the pattern and the silence. About humanity's brief, violent, brilliant existence. Yes, he said finally, I think we will survive. Not because we are stronger or smarter than anyone else, but because we are too stubborn to quit. Because when things get hard, we do not surrender. We adapt, we improvise. We find a way. That is very optimistic, Yuna said. Given everything we know, maybe, Taman agreed. But optimism is also very human. We look at impossible situations and see possibilities. We face overwhelming odds and find hope. That is not naivety. That is strength. Below them, another ship was launching. A colony transport heading to a new world, carrying families, dreams, the future. Humanity was not hiding. They were not cowering behind walls. They were moving forward because that is what humans do. Somewhere out in the dark, ancient threats were stirring. The devourers consumed. The pattern spread. The silence waited, but humanity was ready. Not because they had all the answers. Not because they had perfect strategies. But because they had something else. They had each other. They had determination. They had the stubborn refusal to give up that had carried them from caves to stars. And that would have to be enough. Taman raised his glass to the viewport. To the stars beyond, to the challenges ahead, to the future, uncertain and dangerous and full of possibility. To humanity, and whatever came next, they would face it together, as they always had.